If you coach or play volleyball, you know that strength and power, well, they aren't just nice to haves, are they? They're absolutely essential.
Yeah, fundamental.
We're talking about the engine for those, high-velocity spikes, the quick push-off for a block, and maybe most importantly, the protection that helps prevent those nasty landing injuries.
Exactly. I mean, in a sport that's really defined by explosive jumping performance and just staying healthy, hinges on generating force quickly, but also absorbing it safely. That's the whole game, really.
So today we're doing a deep dive into some really interesting research. It tackles this almost radical idea. What if the secret to getting stronger isn't just more reps in the weight room, but maybe just changing the size of the court you practice on?
That's a great question. We're looking at a specific randomized controlled study. It's titled, Smaller Formats of Volleyball Lead to Greater Improvements in Lower Limb Strength and Power, as well as Reductions in Landing Forces. The authors are YuQing Duan, Wang, Lu, and Wanyu Huang, and this was published just this year, 2024, in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine, Volume 23.
Right. So the mission here was pretty important. The researchers, they wanted to test this alternative training method. They call it ecologically based small-sided games, or SSGs, and compare how different game formats actually affect, measurable physical changes in young female volleyball players. These girls were about, 14 and a half years old on average?
Yeah, right around that age.
Could tweaking the game rules actually be as good as, say, traditional resistance training for these specific outcomes?
Okay, yeah. Let's unpack the setup, because SSGs, they aren't brand new, right? Coaches use them all the time.
Sure.
Because you can manipulate the game, the environment, to sort of nudge players towards specific skills, or in this case, physical demands.
Okay, so we're seeing these small-sided games, SSGs, getting a lot of attention now, not just in soccer or basketball, but moving into volleyball too. Now, some people might argue you need weights, you need iron for real strength games. Why are these small games suddenly being looked at as, a legitimate alternative?
Well, because they cleverly combine that high-intensity physical stimulus with actual technical practice, something you just don't get from isolated strength training.
Ah, okay.
And the thinking is, the smaller the game, the more physically demanding it is for each player involved. It's almost like a stealth strength training.
Stealth strength training, I like that. Okay, so the researchers, they took 56 girls, split them into 3 groups for an 8-week study. You had your control group, they just did their normal volleyball practice.
Right, business as usual for them.
And then 2 experimental groups.
Yeah, the first was the SFG group. That stands for smaller formats of the game. These athletes played 2-on-2 and 3-on-3. And here's the really crucial part. They played on a much smaller court space, using only about 2/6 of the regular court zones.
Let's just picture that for a second. 2/6 of the court. That's tiny. Like you're basically playing in a zone maybe the size of a doubles badminton court. That sounds incredibly intense.
It is. Very high density. Then you had the other group, the LFG larger formats of the game.
Right.
They played 4-on-4 and 5-on-5, and they used almost double the court space, covering 4/6 of the available zones.
So more room to move, maybe more room to hide. Or rely on teammates, I guess.
Exactly. Less individual pressure, potentially. Now, both of these SSG groups, the SFG and LFG, they got this extra training twice a week, but it wasn't a huge time commitment, only 20 minutes per session for the full 8 weeks.
Okay, only 20 minutes, twice a week.
And they were careful to progress things fairly. After 4 weeks, they added an extra set of exercises for both groups. And they even varied the net height sometimes, just to make sure the movements stayed diverse and game-like for both the small and large format groups. They really tried to isolate the key variable here, player density and court size.
Got it. Okay, so before we get to the results, we need to understand what they were actually measuring. Because they weren't just, timing sprints or counting jumps by eye. They used force platforms, high-tech stuff.
Exactly. Precision matters here. They looked at 5 key neuromuscular variables, specifically in the lower body.
Because it's not just about how much power you can generate, right? It's about how efficiently, how safely.
Precisely. So first up, raw strength. They used the isometric mid-thigh pull, the IMTP.
Okay, IMTP. What does that tell us?
This measures your maximal strength, peak force against something that won't move. Basically, it's like, what's the absolute strength ceiling for that athlete's muscles?
Right, the max potential.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they looked at a couple of jumps. First, the squat jump, or SJ.
The SJ measures peak force starting from a dead stop, a static squat. So it isolates that explosive strength without any pre-stretch or bounce. Pure acceleration from 0.
Okay. And then the jump, most people probably know, the counter movement jump. CMJ.
The CMJ uses that quick dip down before jumping. That's the stretch shortening cycle to measure peak power. This is really your explosive ability in a more dynamic game-like action.
And crucially with the CMJ, they also measured something on the way down.
Yes, the peak landing force. This is huge for coaches and physios. It tells us how well the athlete is absorbing impact when they land. Lower force generally means safer, better mechanics, less stress on the joints. It's a big indicator for injury risk.
That makes total sense. Okay, so strength, explosive force, power, landing force. What else?
Efficiency. They used a drop jump test, the DJT, to calculate something called the reactive strength index, or RSI.
RSI sounds important.
It is. Think of it as measuring your springiness, how efficiently your muscles transition from absorbing force, like landing, to producing force, like jumping again quickly. It's calculated by dividing your jump height or flight time by how long your feet are on the ground, the contact time. A high RSI means you're really good at those rapid, repeated jumps you see constantly at the net.
Like for blocking or quick transition.
Exactly.
Okay, this is key. They checked all these measures before the training started at baseline. And
no significant differences between any of the three groups on any of these 5 metrics. The randomization worked.
Perfect. So any changes they saw after 8 weeks, it's down to the training format they were in.
Precisely.
All right, we've set the stage. Now, the results, did those 20-minute small-sided games actually, stack up against the control group? The answer seems like it was, well, much more dramatic than just stacking up.
Oh, absolutely. What's really striking is that significant differences popped up across all 5 of those measures after the 8 weeks. And the SFG group, the 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 players, they were the clear winners. Not just better than control, but significantly better than the LFG group too.
Okay, let's break that down. What about that raw strength, the IMTP peak force?
Significantly greater in the SFG group. The effect size was large, suggesting a really meaningful difference. I mean, compared to the LFG group, the effect size indicates the average SFG player was outperforming something like 83% of the LFG players in terms of strength gains.
Wow, 83%. That's huge from just playing smaller games.
It's a big number. And for explosive strength, measured by that squat jump peak force, even more pronounced.
Really?
Yeah, the advantage for the SFG group was even larger there. The effect size suggests they were ahead of almost 86% of the 4-on-4, 5-on-5 players in improving that pure explosive force.
Okay, this is compelling. What about explosive power, the CMJ?
Same story. Significantly higher CMJ peak power in the smaller format group. It just seems like those 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 games delivered a much better physical stimulus.
And that springiness measure, the RSI.
Significantly higher in the SMG group compared to control, and also trending higher than LFG. It confirms they got better at using that stretch shortening cycle for quick jumps, really vital for volleyball actions.
All right, but here's the one I think is maybe the most critical, especially for keeping young athletes healthy, the landing force.
Yes, and this is arguably the standout finding for player welfare. The SFG group had significantly lower CMJ peak landing force after the training.
Lower landing force, meaning they were landing softer, more safely.
Exactly. They absorbed the impact better, reducing the shock going through their joints. The mean difference was substantial, around 150 newtons improvement from pre to post test for the SFG group. They functionally became safer landers.
That's incredible. Safer and stronger and more powerful.
You're right.
Now, here's the flip side, and this is maybe the critical point for coaches listening. What about the LFG group? The 4-on-4, 5-on-5 players.
Yeah, this is really important. The LFG group showed basically no significant advantages compared to the control group.
No advantage.
Across any of these muscular variables. Not strength, not power, not RSI, not landing force. Nothing significantly improved compared to just doing regular practice.
So if you're running those larger format games, 4v4, 5v5, and you're expecting a physical conditioning benefit, like improved strength or power, this study suggests you're essentially wasting that time from a physical adaptation standpoint.
That's what these results strongly indicate, yes.
Wow. Okay. So we need to connect the dots. Why? Why were the 2v2 and 3v3 formats so much better?
Well, it's not really a mystery when you think about it. It comes down to density and intensity.
Right.
The small format, the tiny court space, it just forces every single player into action much more frequently. You're constantly involved spiking, digging, blocking, moving. high frequency of explosive actions.
Yeah, I can picture it. In a 5-on-5 game, especially on a larger court area, a player might go, what, a minute or two without a really explosive movement sometimes?
Easily.
Hmm.
Whereas in that restricted 2-on-2 game,
Yeah.
you might make 10 rapid jumps and direction changes in that same minute.
Okay.
And that much higher density of action provides a really potent and sustained neuromuscular stimulus.
So it's not just working the muscles harder, it's
Right.
teaching them something.
Exactly. It likely promotes greater engagement of those fast-twitch muscle fibers, the ones crucial for power. And it enhances how the brain recruits and coordinates muscle units. Motor unit recruitment, synchronization. You're basically optimizing the brain-muscle connection under game-like pressure.
That makes sense. The strength training is happening within that chaotic, unpredictable game context, so maybe the coordination improves more realistically than just lifting weights in isolation.
That seems to be the case.
But wait, couldn't that high intensity, all those jumps and landings in the small games, couldn't that also lead to more fatigue, maybe even increased injury risk if you're not careful?
That's a fair question, and load management is always crucial. But what the study actually found was the opposite effects on landing safety.
Right, the lower landing force.
Yes. The thinking is that the frequent, but likely more controlled repetition of landings within the SFG format actually improved neuromuscular coordination during landing. Because they're doing it so often, dynamically, their bodies learn to anticipate and dissipate the forces better.
So the repetition builds the skill of safe landing.
Precisely. That's likely what led to the lower peak landing force and also helped improve the reactive strength index. They weren't just getting tired, they were getting more efficient and safer at handling impact.
So this isn't really about throwing out the weight room entirely, is it? It's more about adding a very specific type of stimulus.
I think that's the right way to look at it. Traditional lifting builds the raw capacity, the engine size, if you will, but these small-sided games seem incredibly effective at teaching the engine how to apply that power efficiently and safely within the specific demands of volleyball, the speed, the chaos, the reaction time.
Especially for these developing athletes.
Yes, particularly for this age group. This study suggests this ecological approach is a highly effective way to build those crucial explosive qualities needed for both performance and injury prevention.
Okay, so the bottom line implication for coaches, for practitioners, it seems pretty clear. If you want to boost lower limb strength, power, and landing skills, the number of players on the court and the space they have, that's a critical dial you need to tune.
Absolutely. And those larger formats, the 4v4s and 5v5s, they just don't seem to provide the necessary stimulus for these specific physical adaptations.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, that SSG isn't just one thing. The details, player numbers, court size, that's the difference between just playing and actually driving significant physical gains.
It is. The devil's in the details, as they say.
So, wrapping this up, connecting it to the bigger picture, this study really gives strong evidence that putting 2v2 and 3v3 small-sided games into your training plan is a smart, game-specific way to seriously boost lower limb strength, power, and landing safety in young female volleyball players.
Yeah, it provides benefits that the larger formats, in this study at least, simply failed to deliver. It's using the sport itself as the conditioning tool.
It's compelling. You get the physical work and the technical practice baked in together.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's a final thought, something maybe for you to mull over. While these small games were super effective, the researchers themselves pointed out a limitation. They didn't use, like, wearable sensors to track the exact external load.
Right, things like precise jump counts or acceleration data for each player.
Yeah, and that makes you wonder, how much better could coaches fine-tune this training if they could quantify that cumulative jump load coming specifically from the small games, if you knew exactly how much impact each player was getting?
Ooh, that's interesting. That kind of data could potentially take this from, a general 20-minute session prescription to really individualized, evidence-based load management within the SSG itself.
Yeah, tailoring it player by player based on their actual workload.
That's where sports science and technology could really merge to optimize things further. It's a fascinating thought.
Definitely something to think about. So if you want to get into the weeds on the methodology, see the specific data tables, the stats, we absolutely encourage you to check out the full article. Again, it's in the 2024 Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
And of course, if you found this deep dive helpful, please make sure you follow our channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss future analyses like this one.
Until next time, keep digging into the data.